Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Modern Mushroom Medicine with our guest, Yarrow Willard. Before I introduce Yarrow, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. My name is Dion, and I am the in-house nutrition consultant here at, here at Choices Clayburn. My team and I offer free one-on-one nutrition education sessions, and to sign up for that, you can do that at our website, choicesmarkets.com, or you can also visit us in store. If you have signed up for tonight's event, you are eligible for a nutrition buck. So this is a coupon of $10 off if you spend $50 or more in store. And to do that, you will receive an email link shortly after the event, and we will ask you for your information, and we will set that up for you to pick that up. If you signed up, sorry about that, everyone. If you want to take part in our Q&A, then you need to sign into the YouTube live chat. And after Yarrow's done speaking, we will open it up for questions. So you do need to have an account. You can sign up for one now and then just log in and we'll have the chat going. With that, I am going to introduce our speaker tonight, who are you are all here to see, Yarrow Willard. He is a second-generation clinical herbalist, also known as the Herbal Jedi. He is the co-founder and formulator of Harmonic Arts, the director of Wild Rose College of Herbal Medicine, and an organizer of the Canadian Herb Conference. He is an influential innovator and international speaker who delivers original and engaging content focused on reclaiming health and deepening connection with the natural world. Yarrow has formulated a number of popular herbal products, created online courses, and has one of the top-ranking plant medicine educational channels on YouTube. So with that, welcome, Yarrow, and thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Really appreciate you guys all taking the time to learn a bit about mushrooms and Choices. Just like, what a choice place to get your groceries, and that you guys offer one-on-one consultations. That's awesome. That's something that back in my day when I worked in a health food store, that wasn't a possibility, where you could sign up online and actually get a nutritional advisor to support you with what you're trying to work with. That's awesome. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everybody, again, we're going to go for about an hour and a bit and then do some Q&A here. I've got a little PowerPoint for you, and I just want you to sit back and connect in with the message from the mushrooms. That's part of what we're going to talk about. I'm hoping to go through a little bit about the history, a little bit about the medicine of mushrooms, a little bit about why we might want to work with fruiting bodies versus mycelium, what that looks like, a little bit about some of the real benefits that we can see for ourselves now and in the future. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I like to make the joke that I'm a fun guy, but really that's just it's a bad one. Really, I'm actually a spore loser if you get me on the wrong day. No, but all mushroom jokes aside, really, this is one of the most fundamental places where our health can really become empowered very easily and very quickly, is working with medicinal mushrooms. So we're going to dive into that. There's what I'm considering a really big shroom boom going on right now. In the last 5 years, medicinal mushrooms have really taken off. I'm seeing huge sections in health food stores now, a lot more awareness of customers understanding the benefits, a lot more sort of science-backed information that is getting into the hands of people that are going, wait a minute, there's a lot to this. This can deal with a lot of the major chronic illnesses of our time. So I'm hoping to demystify a little bit of that, share with you some of the things to watch out for when you're looking at mushroom supplements, and some of the ways in which we can start to work with them, and what to really expect from working with mushrooms. So that's tonight's topic. And let me just make sure I got, okay, so we're going to start with really what the ancient wisdom tells us about mushrooms. Is that the next slide? Yeah, okay. And then, yeah, okay, there we go. So if we look all over the world, we see that functional mushrooms are a massive part of all cultures. They may not always be top of the books when we read, but especially in Asian cultures, we saw a lot of information for over 4,000 years of written history around mushrooms like reishi. This is me little picture of me hanging out with the big reishi statues in near a mushroom museum in China when I was over there. But we see them, and this other one below is from Greece. So we see them all through Central ancient Europe. We see Vikings working with mushrooms, some of them more like the crazy berserker Amanita mushrooms, but we also see that in Central and South America, shamanic mushroom use. When we look at stories like Alice in Wonderland, they kind of weave together this down the rabbit hole, potentially a mushroom story. When we look at old cultures, we see that there's a big influence from the world of fungi. And really, they often represent this underworld, this spirit energy that connects things. Even in the fall, right now, when it's mushroom season, and all the rain promises as all these mushrooms that just pop out of the underworld, literally mysteriously from right in front of us. Some mushrooms can grow like 80 pounds in a day. It's impressive how much fungal material can be produced. 80 pounds in one day. There's mushrooms that are thousands of years old. There are mushrooms that are hundreds of acres wide. There are mushrooms that break down plastic. There are mushrooms that clean up oil. There are some pretty profound ways in which the world of fungus has really supported our planet and created kind of the, I could say, immune system of planet Earth in a lot of ways. And so something we're tapping into when we're working with mushrooms, and we're tuning into the energy of the mushroom sphere or the fungal sphere, is this kind of immune system of our planet, this regulator that decomposes what no longer serves the planet and turns it into available nutrition for the planet to recompose more of itself with. And in a way, from a micro-macro relationship, that's a big part of what we see from functional mushrooms. And so we're going to dive into that. But really, a lot of what we're learning about mushrooms is still undiscovered. A couple of quick facts I'd love to share with you before I jump more into the slide. I love these things, and they're never in my slideshows anymore. But stuff like, we think there's 1.5 million species of fungus on the planet. We really have no idea. We've identified about 100 or 270 that have food or medicinal kind of properties, but we've identified hundreds of thousands that we have by name, by Latin binomial. And we really are we think this might only be like 10% of all the fungal species that are out there. So something we're learning is that because mushrooms share similar DNA to us, they come from a similar background. Actually, we are evolved, animals anyway, are evolved out of kind of the fungal background of evolution, not the plant background. So we kind of are more similar and more self-similar in the way we breathe oxygen, and the way we break down nutrition, and the way our nervous systems are built like their hypha, our sensory perception is built similar. That when we tune into working with medicinal mushrooms, we often are tuning into this kind of deeper ancestral wisdom of our planet as far as how to deal with pathogenic organisms, how to deal with chronic imbalances, how to rebalance and recalibrate. And this, to me, is, I guess, the part that I really love about working with functional mushrooms. And I think that it's starting to really catch on. People are starting to become more aware. Now, these aren't the cheapest supplements, but the reality is that there's a lot of great benefits people are seeing. And so there's a big push towards them. The challenge, and this is always the challenge, is that as things become popular, the education around it is limited, and it becomes more about marketing messages than it does about actual, like, useful, skillful information. And this is what we're seeing happening in the mushroom world now. A lot of companies sharing a lot of products, and the reality is we got to weed through that and find out what is the best stuff for us to work with. What are the benefits? Where's the chemistry and all of that? So I'm going to get into that. But let me talk about me and my story and our family and our company for a second before we get into mushrooms too much. So I'm a clinical herbalist. My wife is as well. We met at Herb School, Wild Rose College of Herbal Medicine, and now actually being the director of Wild Rose College, because it was my father's school, started in 1975. When we started Harmonic Arts, this was in 2008, and we really wanted to bring plant medicine to a easy, useful, tangible, good tasting, an effective way. So we started actually in a farmer's market, of all things, of course, but really started to grow into some of our local health food stores. And pretty soon, the word of mouth about what we were doing really caught on. And a lot of people got really excited about working with our product, and we just grew and grew and grew to now the point where we're about 40, we're 42, 43 staff members. Our team has grown. We've become a national brand. We still do all of our own in-house production, and we've really put our money where our mouth is. Our goal is to be the change we want to see on the planet. So part of the Harmonic Arts story is really about being a B Corp certification, which is really better corporations that are looking towards planet first and looking to the health of their employees and the transparency of their vendor supply chain, and make sure that ethical streams of commerce are all the way down the chain. And then also we've become a 1% for the planet company over a number of years, where we give back to our second growth forest in Cumberland, where we're based. So yeah, and of course organic and all that kind of good stuff. But really our business model has been to teach people about plant medicine, share with them how to empower themselves with I'll say the wisdom of the plants, and then also give them access and tools to that, and use those funds to really support a better planet that we want to be on. So that's what we do, and that's part of the reason why our business has really become successful, because a lot of that aligns with I'll say the multiple rings of our value stream that most of us are in these days, which is like we want to see the best for our planet, for our children, for ourselves, for our health. We want to make sure our dollar is our vote. So anyway, enough about that. I'll just say that as you kind of tune in with the Harmonic Arts products, know that we do a lot of our own in-house production. We have beautiful tincture lab, a really vibrant team that is well supported with great work environment, including like qigong and stuff in the morning sometimes, and high vibrational water and all this good stuff. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay. So really we're here to talk about functional mushrooms. I'm going to really touch on these 5. These are the top 5. There are lots more, like I said, over 270 that have good quality medicinal and food properties. There's ones like shiitake and oyster mushrooms and maitake and the mezuma mushroom and the like different Phalinus species that are really awesome, and tremella, and there's some other great ones. But really where most of the research, and I shouldn't say most, but yeah, definitely most, but it is behind these 5. Reishi being the #1 studied natural product in the world as far as amount of money spent on it, more than echinacea or turmeric or ashwagandha or any of these other herbs or natural, even natural pharmaceutical drugs. Reishi, a lot of money. And this is because of the Asian market. 90% of the world's mushroom consumption happens within Asia. So we start seeing this shroom boom here, but it's like part of that culture. It's been in that culture for a long time. Mushroom coffee is sort of novel here in North America. Well, it is way the norm there. I remember when my father came back from China in the 90s, he brought back Gano coffee, and it was a reishi coffee. It's become novel here, but it's been something that they've been doing for a long time. So all the food, anyway, that mushroom alone, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent just studying reishi for its adaptogenic properties, for its longevity and health enhancing properties. So there's tons of scientific literature to really comb through and look at the results, double-blind placebo-controlled studies, clinical trials, lots of different stuff. That one in turkey tail is the second one, because turkey tail is one that's often been used for cancer. And so these are some of the ones that are the big hitters. Lion's mane's become super popular in the Western world. And one of the things, like I will touch on all of these a little deeper later, but I want to just say that lion's mane was never a medicine. It was always happy tummy mushroom in Asia. And that's because it enhanced mood and it helped with gut anxiety and tension. And so they called it happy tummy mushroom. There's a lot of nervous tissue in the gut, and we've learned that it has nerve growth factors, and we'll get into that. But the reality is now it's being heavily marketed as a medicine for the brain, as a support for memory and cognition, and it has those benefits. But I think a lot of people are not using it properly, because when you actually go to the studies that show those benefits, you need far more volume of lion's mane than most people are taking. So yeah, like it was a food, it really was. So it's something you need a good amount, like a stir fry of mushrooms kind of thing of lion's mane to see some of those benefits. 6 grams. Chaga has really become our most immune supportive, antioxidant, anti-aging kind of mushroom. It tastes good. I often drink chaga tea. Tonight I'm having a green tea because I had a big meal right before this, and I was like, oh, I better have some tea to help me digest. But yeah, turkey tail, I mentioned, and then cordyceps is the other one we're going to talk about. And that is our kind of energy stamina tonic. There's a lot to cordyceps. I'm really excited about the newer research coming out around cordyceps. And I think there's a lot more to this one. It's mostly gained popularity in the like bodybuilding industry, but there's a lot more to cordyceps than just bigger, better, stronger kind of phenomenon. So we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so just for a little fun and giggles here, I mentioned the mushrooms a bit. What mushroom do you think you are? And the chat is a little delayed here, but I'd love for you to add it to the chat for other people to see what you think you are. Are you a creative, great-haired, optimistic lion's mane person? Maybe you're a cordyceps, athletic, high-energy drive person. Or maybe you're trusted, foodie, and resilient kind of turkey tail person. Or maybe you're a grounded, spiritual, big-hearted reishi person. Or top one, dynamic, protective, and adventurous. Or maybe you're a bit of all five. And I will say, from the perspective of, wow, I can't choose which one I am, this is how I feel about working with these mushrooms. I would personally do a 5 mushroom blend versus any one of these individuals. And sometimes if I really want extra reishi, I do a reishi tincture and I put the 5 mushroom powder into my teas and tonics and oatmeals and all the other good stuff. And I take the reishi tincture on the side. Or that kind of way. That's the way I like to work with them. But yeah, I feel like I want to say I'm a grounded, spiritual, big-hearted person, but I know I definitely don't have the great hair, but I am creative and optimistic. So which one do you think you are? Put it in the chat. Okay. So as we get going into this sort of understanding of mushrooms, we first have to get a little bit of, like in her classes, we talk about the biochemistry, we look at the anatomy and physiology before we talk about what goes on with the body. Well, let's look at the kind of physiology or the anatomy of a mushroom. And there's really 2 main parts. There's a whole cycle, right, to the life coming from the spores in the gills or in the sponge or the polypore bottoms, whichever type of mushroom it is, that goes up into the clouds, comes down, gram-positive, gram-negative, and multiple kind of partners build together. They have this kind of kundalini, kinky, twisting, sexual tension relationship, and they produce this big mycelial mat. And as that grows out, when enough moisture comes, it starts to store in there and build these primordial balls of dense tissue that erupt and create mushrooms. And the mushroom that we see as an actual mushroom is really like the sexual reproductive part of the mushroom or the fungi. The underground organism is more like the tree. So it's often been explained that the mushroom is like an apple and the mycelium is like a tree. And I like this explanation because it gives me a little more of that insight into the fruiting body really represents this reproductive organ, right? And it represents this kind of extension of the mushroom's best chemistry for the next generation. Whereas the mycelium is really the hardworking structural organism that does the job of breaking down the nutrition. Both have benefits. What we're seeing in the Western world, though, or at least in North America, sorry, I should correct. I actually just got back from Europe and I was at a conference with like maybe 15, 20 different mushroom companies. We don't see any mycelium products there, only fruiting body products in Europe, really. But what we're seeing in North America is a lot of companies selling a mycelium and calling it a mushroom. And this is a bit of from a mycological perspective, a bit of a faux pas because these aren't really mushrooms, they're mycelium. And that's sort of like the tree. In the analogy of the apple and the tree, it's sort of like a lot of people end up buying mycelinated grain products. And I won't name any companies, but the reality is it's like actually getting the tree, not the apple, when you think you're getting apple pectin or apple extract of some form. So I just would be really cautious to look out for that. And I'll tell you why. The big thing is that in, let's see if there's another slide. No, okay, I'll go back to this. I think it's probably on a different slide. Sorry. But it's that the fruiting body, the caps and the gills, need to produce antioxidants to protect themselves. So you have all kinds of antioxidants like SOD and other kinds of just sort of flavonoid groups and things like that in there to protect them. So you got an antioxidant profile. You also have a terpene profile, which is a big part of when cannabis became legal. A lot of science was starting to look at this, what's called the endocannabinol system. And this is a terrible name because it has nothing to do with cannabis. But the endocannabinol system is a system on the body that really governs our nervous system and our endocrine system. And it kind of is like this overarching harmonizer of our regulatory bodies, of our sort of like a governance body of our little mini biosphere that is our bodies. And terpene profiles, and a lot of these interesting terpenes have a real benefit to this endocannabinol system and actually work on that. And that's one of the big ways they discovered the benefits of some of the benefits of cannabis was, but this isn't just a cannabis thing. This is actually about some of the chemistry and how it interacts with the body in that way. A lot of the terpene profile also has antiviral compounds and like cardiovascular regulating compounds and things like this that are potent and powerful in the way they help disrupt disease and help break up stagnation and help us kind of regulate the body. Both the mycelium and the fruiting body have what are called polysaccharides. And I think this is what led a lot of the North American companies to sell mycelium, is because there's a ton of polysaccharides in the mycelium. And when we understand the chemistry of polysaccharides, these are large, complex molecules that are very simple at the same time. They're very complicated in the sense that there's thousands and thousands of carbon chains all in this like swirly double helix or triple helix kind of DNA type structure. And what our body does is it uses that as immunological food, as anti-inflammatory aspects in the gut lining, as supporting, kind of a prebiotic, as supporting our white blood cells and our immune system. So these polysaccharides are a great piece of medicine. And kind of the idea from a theoretical perspective is that, well, if the mycelium has a lot of polysaccharides, why not sell the mycelium? Because you can actually get like 5 kilos of mycelium out of one grow, whereas you might only get like, half a pound of mushrooms. So a lot of bang for the buck was kind of the concept behind that. The science is still coming out, and we're seeing a number of, I guess the scientific community come back and say, hey, mycelium has some fruiting body. What's the deal? Why are you guys promoting this as mushrooms? And so many of the mycelium companies and even other science is being funded to start to look at mycelium because it's a big thing in North America. But if you go to Asia, you go to Europe, you go to almost anywhere else in the world, mushrooms have been used for thousands of years. They're part of the culture, and it's actually, other than the science, it just is intuitive that the fruiting bodies have all of these benefits. So, needless to say, I'll try to make this long story short, but when I first got into working with mushrooms, I was super excited about them and just learning the benefits. And Harmonic Arts, we started working with mycelium and we were excited about it until I started to taste them and realize how bland they were from a flavor profile. And I looked at a lot of the fruiting body extracts that I was trying of like reishi and chaga, and it's so much flavor, just the flavor. You can tell the chemistry based on how much flavor is in a chaga extract or in a reishi extract or in a lion's mane extract. They all have such unique profiles and unique, I guess, personalities versus the mycelium. Every one of the mycelium I tried when we were selling them all tasted very bland, kind of like a grain spawn. So we had to make a switch. And so then it became a big thing for us. How do we find the world's best mushrooms? And this is where sourcing comes in. And this is something we did a big job of. I took samples in from, multiple mushroom companies from different parts of the world, but almost all of the companies really doing a good job of growing good fruiting bodies were coming out of Asia, because that's where the mushroom kind of industry was based and where a lot of the actual usage, like I said, 90% of the use on the planet is in Asia. And so we're actually a small market comparatively to how much cultural adoption there is to functional mushrooms out there. So anyway, after taking in a lot of samples, it took us a long time asking all the tough questions most of the companies can't answer, which is like, what's the substrate it's grown on? Because I understand, like, for example, this picture is me after vetting, like, 50 different reishi suppliers and different versions, even from the same suppliers, different versions of reishi. Where is it grown? Well, this is grown in the, I guess, the Nine Dragon Mountains, it's called, in China, where I got to go visit this farm. And they're grown on the Danwood logs, which is the traditional log that really grows good reishi with the high terpene profiles, that has more of the ergosterols and more of the better concentration of ganodermic acids and the like actual compounds that I'm looking for and excited about when it comes to working with reishi. And it took a long time to hunt this down. So this is what we've done at Harmonic Arts, is we've actually found the world's best mushrooms, and also the best way of working with them through kind of concentrating them into a powder that is not really a powder. A lot of it is like a juice tincture dehydrated, and a decoction, like kind of almost like a bone broth of a mushroom dehydrated into a powder. So it's more like this juice powder of a concentrate. So you get a lot of the benefits, and it's easy to absorb without all of the fiber and stuff. So mushroom powder by itself, not very digestible. All the mushrooms have those woody bits, which is lignans and chitin. Really, chitin is the main thing. But if that's, think of the exoskeletons of insects or your fingernail beds. That's what holds mushrooms in place. So this is really important to try and find log-grown mushrooms, or kind of wild cultivated mushrooms on that kind of stuff. Or even if you are working with a fortified substrates, there's wood base in it for some of the wood-based mushrooms, not just a grain base. A lot of mushrooms are now cultivated on straight grains, and there isn't anything wrong with the starches and grains, but just depending on what type of mushroom you're trying to grow, some of the ones that we have, well, I'll get into it. But anyway, this has been me nerding out for 10 years on mushroom cultivation and understanding the chemistry and really trying to find the best mushrooms on the planet. So yeah. Oh, I talked about fruiting body versus, so I already did have this. And the idea of the higher concentration and wider variety of compounds that we see in the fruiting body versus the mycelium. So I'm going to skip that because I kind of talked about that already. And so, yeah, I think I guess I can play this video.
You deserve the best, Nate.
Well, I guess.
That's why we source our mushrooms from small organic farms in the mountains of rural China and Siberia. We know where our mushrooms come from and that our farmers use sustainable, clean growing practices. After harvesting and processing, our mushrooms are lab tested for quality and potency.
Some of these labs are pretty cool and get to go check out.
In our facility on Vancouver Island, each batch is verified for taste and consistency. Harmonic Arts mushroom powders. Experience the healing power of nature in your daily life.
Okay.
You deserve the best.
There we go. Sorry, that's a little, it feels a little infomercially, but really, I got to spend a lot of time here in China, really just tuning in to some of these farms. And we brought a videographer. I've got a number of videos that we've put together on our YouTube channel, both on the Herbal Jedi channel, which is my personal channel, but also the Harmonic Arts YouTube channel. So please check that out, because you are live streaming this through YouTube. And maybe we'll put in some links to a couple of those in the chat if I can get on there a little later. But for now, I want to just keep you here on this message and really tune into like where these mushrooms come from. Okay, yeah, this is the first one. Reishi, this is the Reishi farm. It was in spore when I was there. So what looks like football kind of things is actually spores all over my cheeks. I could have spent so much more time here. This farm was really hard to get to. It was like 9 hours really by train, a few hours, and then 5 hours up a kind of gravel road to really get to this farm. I mean, that was 5 hours really there and back, but we didn't get enough time. I didn't get enough time. I could have spent a day or two just hanging out in the mountains here. If we could have set up tent and just tuned in, that was what I really would love to do if I go back, because it's pretty magical to hang out with these reishi and just to see the way they're grown and how they're put together. This is what makes good quality reishi, is to just clean air. Underground is logs, and they've been inoculated with the mushroom spawn, and then they've grown up through the ground and create these these beautiful fruiting bodies. So yeah, a lot of fun there. And that's just something I was tuned into. I didn't get to go see chaga while I was there because our chaga doesn't come from China. It actually is a Siberian chaga. Now we have chaga here in Canada as well. We sell a tea cut of our chaga in Canada, but because we really like the chaga extract, and I guess our tincture too has some of that, but because we like the chaga extract, it really requires to be basically turned into an alcohol extraction and a water extraction, and then dehydrated in a vacuum tube dehydrator, really, which changes the atmospheric pressure to make it really a powder of a juice, like a tincture powder kind of thing. And that is some of the most sophisticated and just effective way to take out the chemistry of mushrooms and make them super bioavailable. So that facility is a $400 million facility that we've really outsourced and found to be able to produce these powders so that we can bring them. And so our chaga ends up coming from really Russia and Siberia and the sort of Siberian forests. Now, chaga, it's really important that you get, when you are getting good chaga, that you make sure that it is grown on an actual birch tree versus a mycelial grain spawn. Chaga concentrates the betulinic acid in birch. So you get a really good immune support and regulation support of your body through that. It has a lot of antioxidants from the birch too, like both in that betulinic acid, but also it up channels SOD, which is superoxide dismutase. It's a free radical scavenger that your body already produces, but this has just a ton of it in it. It's got quercetin, it's got a little bit of germanium and some other unique minerals. There's actually I think it was over 200 different phytonutrients in chaga. It's just a really powerful kind of substance, very, very biologically active and immune supportive. We see a lot of cancer properties from chaga as well. You know, in Russia, this was a classic tonic to drink the inner part of chaga and then use the outer part of chaga for antiviral immune protection. So yeah, because there's more terpenes in the outer part, in the black part, and then there is in the inner part, which is the orange kind of corky stuff. So yeah, real takeaway here is chaga on a tree grown chaga is far superior in chemistry, in active bioavailable stuff for your body to really thrive with. So, and I really like chaga as a tea. So I'm classically, this is just a great tea one. Our chaga powder, by the way, makes an awesome tea. It's just like add it, take a quarter teaspoon into a cup of water and just stir it around, and you can drink that as straight chaga tea. It's a really instant tea, and that's a great way to work with it. Lion's mane, lion's mane comes from a place called Gutan, and Gutan is known as ancient mushroom farm in Chinese. It's kind of it is that place, I guess it's Mandarin really, but where our lion's mane is sort of the high end of Gutan. It's this big open valley that the water comes down, a lot of rainfall. It just really grows mushrooms well. And so that whole area is kind of a mushroom mecca. But our lion's mane is grown there, and we have really good quality lion's mane. Hanging out in the lion's mane farms was pretty impressive to see not just the volume that it is grown, but also the quality of the setup. It's really teched out and super efficient, but also really abundant. And so they've done a good job of that in that part of the world. So I'm excited to work with that. We also have it's an organic certified farm, like our other one that grows the reishi. But that being said, we still test every batch and make sure that there's no pesticide residues, because there's a lot of other farmers, which is part of the reason why we've chosen a lion's mane farm that is kind of upstream. It's uphill, so that there isn't runoff of the water from other farms that aren't using such ethical practices with what they're growing. Although with mushrooms like lion's mane, there's not a lot of potential risk really, for other than maybe heavy metal and some things like that being chelated out from bad practices elsewhere. And that's, I think, where China gets a real bad rep, is those kind of things and pollution. But the reality is, you go to these places like Gutan, and it's pretty far, right? It's not like in that eastern seaboard of China where where you've got like a massive amount of population density. So you have way less of this kind of potential, biohazards in the environment. And I think we have a lot of that here in North America too. So anyway, we'll keep going. Our turkey tail comes from the northeastern corner, I guess, top corner near Siberia, where it's kind of wild cultivated. And this is an area that is actually is heavily forested. And so the wild cultivation is just encouraged lion's mane kind of re-inoculated into the deadfall and cultivated on that. And that's become a really successful way of growing lion's mane so that it can grow on traditional wood. Again, the chemistry changes. There's a lot of terpenes and I guess polyphenols and things like that in turkey tail that really are directly from the extracted from the wood itself that it's grown on. So it's just another story of why it's important to kind of know your sourcing. And for me, it was anyway. And I've done that sourcing and I know it and I feel really good about it now. So I feel like there's that may support you as well in your own choices. Last one, cordyceps. Our cordyceps is grown in this is the only one that's like indoor farmed of all the ones that we work with. And that's because it's a very special strain, not strain of cordyceps, but the substrate that it's grown on is. And so this was a neat facility to kind of go tune into. And actually cordyceps is our most expensive raw ingredient because of the substrate it is grown on. And I got to go to the University of Hangzhou, which is kind of like the tech capital of China, sort of like Silicon Valley there. And what they had, that university alone gets like $10 million a year just to study mushrooms. And so they spent a number of years really hacking apart cordyceps and trying to grow out the best fruiting bodies, like millions of dollars of research done into like trying different types of substrates and then testing out the cordycepine and the adenosine content and looking at the chemistry and really trying to understand it and unpack like how do we get the best cordyceps? Because like on wheat, you can grow cordyceps that are really big and fat, but they're low in bioactive compounds. So ours is growing on a substrate that is a mix of like a soy, a rice, a coconut fiber, and a bunch of different kind of ash and mineral mix in order to basically mirror the exoskeleton of an insect and to have enough protein to be kind of like an insect. And this is where cordyceps thrives. And so because this mushroom naturally grows on insects, but of course, other than like silkworm larvae, which is far too expensive to like grow commercial cordyceps, all cordyceps in the market, and other than wild cultivated or wild harvested ones, or some of these silkworm larva ones that I've seen that are not really attainable or accessible by North Americans, it's all vegetarian and it's all grown on various things like wheat or millet or sorghum, or in our case, a soy, rice, coconut fiber mix. And this, anyway, long story, but the reality is that our cordyceps is one of the only ones on the market that has a real good bioactive markers of cordycepine and adenosine content, which are the things that people really actually want in cordyceps. A lot of the benefits that have been seen from the research of cordyceps is like opening bronchial and increasing oxygen flow and helping support the adrenals and get the cardiovascular system pumping and better oxygen into the bloodstream so that our cells get better respiration and our adrenals don't burn out and get fried in the process of high output. And this kind of like what people are looking for is that. And that's not the polysaccharides. That's not the immune supportive part that you might find in some of the mycelium or that you might find in some of the fruiting body without these compounds. You really need these compounds. And so anyway, that's what we've kind of done is work with like, how do we get really high amounts of these bioactive compounds to really maximize the benefits for people when they're working with cordyceps. They really see and feel the difference to their energy and to their adrenal burnout or to their cardiovascular and oxygenation to the cells. All right. So here's another, I guess this is another one of those videos, but at this time I think I'm going to see if I can, no, I'm not going to play it. Well, I guess I could. Yeah, I think that's a video. I'm going to leave it. That's a video that shows about our extraction facility. But it's all good. It's just a lot of, it looks like a brewery essentially, where you've got lots of big metal vats that do different things, from the vacuum dehydration process to the decoction process to the alcohol extraction process. So once all that's done, and once we've got these like bioactive 7-to-1 to 12-to-1 concentrated powders, we then put them through a massive amount of testing, because even though our facility is certified organic, even though all organic operating procedures and GMP standards are being followed, even though the farms are organic, there's still potential of pathogens and harmful bacteria, microbial things getting in there. There's potential risk of pesticides, there's potential risk of heavy metals coming from somewhere else that we don't know about. And we're trusting in our partners to provide and be truthful with what they say. So we do a lot of testing, third-party testing, but also every single batch before it even leaves to come here is tested as well. So yeah, and then also tested for bioactive potency. That's an important factor too. Our mushroom extracts end up being a 12-to-1 in the reishi, all the way down to a 7-to-1 in the lion's mane. And the reason they're a little different is because they're not really measured by the 12-to-1 extraction ratio. They're measured by the bioactive compounds. And so, the guaranteed 30% polysaccharides is kind of the measurement, but it's always higher. Guaranteed, a certain percentage of terpenes in the reishi and the chaga. The reason chaga and reishi are done in an alcohol extraction is because of the terpene profile, which is just not water soluble in that sense. And if you're curious about our 5-mushroom blend or our 5-mushroom drinking chocolate, those are equal parts of each blend in the sense of equal ratios. So yeah, there ends up being a little more lion's mane in there and a little more turkey tail and cordyceps because it's in a ratio factor. And we do, I think there's about, for every serving of our 5-mushroom drinking chocolate, there's a full serving of what we would recommend of our functional mushrooms in the powder form. So you're actually getting like a full dose by having a 5-mushroom drinking chocolate. It's not just like a lot of chocolate and just a little bit of mushrooms. We do a full 10% of the blend is mushrooms, which is quite a bit. And so you end up getting a really potent functional drink, not just a drink with mushroom window dressing, which is something that as we started doing elixirs, we started in 2008, and that was what we really started with, was like crafting up functional drinks and making really fun herbal lattes. We now see a lot of those on the market, and that's great. It's really great. Part of the reason I think that's great is because a lot of them are not they really don't shine with potency, and they really make ours stand out with the potency that you're getting, the therapeutic benefits. Okay, so understanding extraction. Well, you'll see this on the packaging, so I'll just kind of leave it there. The thing that I want you to understand is that, what does a 12-to-1 extract mean? It means that you're really getting 12 pounds of mushroom into 1 pound of this powder. So the crude equivalency of, in a sense of 375 milligrams, is the equivalency of 4,500 milligrams. So that's 4.5 grams in a little over a third of a gram, right? So that's quite a bit. And why this is important, and why I at least stress this, is that we find that if you look at the academic papers, you'll see that a lot of the paperwork is showing that the therapeutic benefits of many of these mushrooms range in like 3 to 6 grams a day. And chronically in North America, we are underdosing our mushroom products. A lot of people taking lion's mane that are just a 1-to-1 mycelium powder. First off, it's just mycelium, not fruity body. But second off, at a 1-to-1 ratio, you end up with really like the 375 milligrams here of the lion's mane, or maybe all the way up to 500 milligrams of lion's mane. But that's not the same as what the study says when they say use 6 grams. So a lot of people are using like maybe 10% of the dose they should be in some cases, to see the benefits of nerve growth factors and to stimulate cognitive repair and work with that. So I think a lot of these are chronically underdosed in North America, which is part of the reason why I'm a big fan of the powders and really getting those higher extracts. So let's talk about each one individually, and then I will jump into some Q&A after this. So if you have questions, I want to just invite you to put them in the chat now, so that when we come back with Q&A, they're all ready and primed to go. If there's anything you want to know specifically about mushrooms or a health imbalances that involve mushrooms, remember that we have limited time and I can't go into deep family history around stuff, even though I have been trained as a clinical herbalist. That is my kind of core mode. It's not something we can talk about in a webinar, but I would love to answer questions around mushrooms or some of the benefits, or I'd love to hear also from you if you can add to the chat how you like to work with mushrooms and some of the things you've done with working with mushrooms. That would really help other people that are listening in and tuning in to get a better idea of them. So yeah, I'd love for you to just be included in this conversation around that. Reishi is my favorite mushroom. I know I shouldn't have a favorite, but I'm very biased to reishi, the Ganoderma family. So the name in Latin is Ganoderma lucidium, and Gano is shiny and derma is skin. So it's this red, shiny skinned mushroom. Well, this one grows here on the West Coast. Actually it grows in all kinds of places. The Ganoderma oregonense, sorry, a different species, not the lucidium, but the oregonense and the applanatum. There's two different species that grow here. And in some parts, the suja as well, that grows here. So, but that's a little more out east, typically. I've seen this in Stanley Park. I've seen this in Lynn Valley. I've seen this in Squamish. I've seen this mushroom on a Frisbee golf course in North Vancouver. Like I've seen it all over the place. And if you know what you're looking for. So I'm not saying we should harvest all the ones we see in the wild, but know that Ganodermas are like the wise mushroom of our forest. And even just tuning in with them is part of their medicine. They grow on these old intact ecosystems, or at least partly intact ecosystems. We now see, like I said, on a Frisbee golf course in North Vancouver. So they're which is a partially intact dog walk course, really. The reality is that Ganodermas are all over the world, and I think of them as like the Merlin of mushrooms, the sage kind of wizard of mushrooms. The ennobled witch of mushrooms, the hedge witch that knows the wise woman, I guess, or man, either way. But the reality is this mushroom has been used for thousands of years and has this just deep and rich history of spiritual potency enhancement, of connection to not the divine, but like to the self more, of grounding us into our body, of tuning us into both higher and lower frequencies and being a harmonizer to increase our vitality and longevity and just our capacity to live a healthy long age. Like there's no point in living a long life if we're not healthy and living a long life, right? So when we, put it through the scientific model of the modern world, we see that there's a lot of benefits to protecting the cardiovascular system and supporting heart health and working with cholesterol buildup and blood pressure issues and elasticity of the arteries. We see there's a lot of benefit from some of the terpenes in supporting the immune system, of helping the liver detoxify, of dealing with radioactive isotopes and all kinds of heavy metal toxicity in the body and tough to deal with stuff. Things that I would call on to be resilient against a polluted planet. And unfortunately, we are passing on to our children, and we've inherited a planet that is a bit polluted and a bit sick right now. And the need for our bodies to have good detoxification and good ability to process through some of the compounds that we're putting in ourselves is going to be a far more than just like a luxury, more of a necessity in the future here. And I'm not a doomsday person, but I will say that reishi really fits into the like post-apocalyptic medicines, if I were to think of one. And at the same time, it's something that I would put into I would put into the water supply of every city I could, if I could, because it helps to calm down the overwhelm in our system. And I think that's the big part of the issue that at least I face when I'm in the city and I'm in a busy space. And I'm sure some of you can resonate with this, that there's a lot of overwhelm, there's tension, there's anxiety, there's distraction, there's a lot going on these days. And reishi is kind of like a meditation in a bottle. That's one of its names. Or spiritual vegetable meat is another name. Or to protect us from our own brains is another kind of saying for this mushroom. And so helping us with circular thinking. And when I say calm down the overwhelm, it's circular thinking, anxiety, insomnia, even things like asthma and deeper breathing, calming down respiration, calming down our heart from heart palpitations, calming down inflammation in the gut as an anti-inflammatory, but also just to like calm down that. So I'd put this in the water supply of every major city in North America if I could, actually probably on the planet. And I think that's part of why it's been so heavily adopted in Asian culture, is that it really is, it shines as far as the medicine for like dealing with like the population density of a lot of people. There's a real good benefit that reishi offers in that sense for supporting our health. Okay, so that's a little bit about it. I will say that something that is not always shared about mushrooms like this is that because it grows in every ecosystem around the world, there's access and connection to this type of energy just from spending time in those places. So my invitation to you also is not to even pick the reishi mushrooms in these forests, but go spend some time forest bathing, spend some time, which is really known as Shinrin-yoku in the Japanese culture. And it's this idea of the forest bathing is just tuning into the natural world, slowing down the mind and drinking in the moment. And just getting curious and not having anywhere to go, not having any expectation of achieving a walking goal or anything like that, or not looking at our phone, but just noticing nature and slowing down and tuning into it has a huge benefit to our immune system and our cardiovascular and anxiety, all these things. And that's best done in these older reishi forests. So if you do a little bit of forest walking or forest bathing, consider thinking about a bit of that meditation as you're walking through an ancient wise mushroom mycelia that knows all the trees, that knows all the animals, that knows all the insects, that knows all of the understory, and has been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that's a big part of that energy we get from these forests, all in temperate and tropical rainforests all over the world. And I love that about this mushroom. So anyway, I'll stop there because I could probably talk about reishi the whole night. Chaga, and actually just as a point, I once challenged myself at one of our herb conferences to do a hour-and-a-half class just on Ganodermas. So I have lots of stories and famous quotes and fables and things like that from reishi and the sort of old wisdom that it comes with. Chaga. This one, I would say about 10 years ago, really became a popular mushroom. And it still is a popular mushroom. I think it is the best tasting mushroom as far as like a coffee alternative or as like a tea. It has some vanillic acids in it, which make it like a nice robust vanilla, but it also has some notes of like an umami kind of, not bitter of coffee, but like this nice full bodiness that coffee has, or that some of those kind of drinks have, without any caffeine, obviously. But I mentioned that chaga has over 200 phytonutrients in it. I talked about the antioxidants like SOD already, and there's just this flavor. Probably the best thing I like about chaga is beyond all that and the taste, which actually makes it easy to like chaga because of the taste, is that it stabilizes blood sugars and blood pressure. So I tend to like to do a bit of intermittent fasting, and I don't do it with like strict regime, but it's much more around, I know I want to give my digestive system a rest, and I don't like to have food always digesting, because then it takes me out of my brain and puts me into my gut, and that's not where I want to be all the time, or into my heart I'd rather be if I can. But when it comes to our bodies, not always having food in our stomach is really a good thing. And I feel like chaga tea is a really good one for intermittent fasting, for doing a little bit of digestive resets and breaks between meals. So if you feel like low blood pressure or low blood sugar, kind of rather than reach for a cookie, maybe have a cup of chaga tea, or take our chaga powder and just take a little teaspoon, put it in some hot water. That's a great way to work with this mushroom in that way. It also has a lot of saponins in it, which are soap-like compounds. That's how I like to think of saponins, because they are emulsifiers. They're soap-like. And those saponin groups, the reason I mention them is they do really good in making this a base for a herbal latte. And what I mean by that is like a herbal fat drink, whether that's whipped in butter or coconut oil or ghee or MCT oil, or whether that's a nut milk and tea, or whether that's like our golden milk or our 5 mushroom drinking chocolate. Well, the saponins in chaga make it a great base that it emulsifies in that fat layer in the blender or with a blending wand, which is what I like. I tend to like butter, but we have that that nice grass-fed local butter out here that I'm a big fan of. It does hurt my pocketbook. It is expensive to get really good quality butter, but to me, based on my ancestry, I understand that I did not grow up in a Polynesian island with coconut trees. And so coconut oil is maybe not the ancestrally wisest choice for me to put into my body. And that's how I like to think about food, and is like what actually fits into my season and what fits into my ancestry and what fits into my lifestyle as well. And not to be so dogmatic about diets, but really to kind of take a wider lens of like what's more intuitive based on the wisdom I know already. And if I don't use the wisdom I know, then it becomes a crime against that wisdom. And so I just try to tune in that way. Like seasonal eating right now, it's like we have a pot of soup on the stove almost all the time right now. I mean, tonight for dinner, I had a big pot of pumpkin soup with actually some medicinal mushrooms in it and a bunch of spices. And yeah, it's like just that time of year where it's not salad season anymore. Okay. So yeah, there's also a lot of terpenes and betulinic acid. And I mentioned that already also. So some of these are anti-inflammatory, antiviral, anti-cancer. The thing I want to leave you with as an impression too is to understand that you only get these compounds if you're getting it from a tree-grown chaga, and if it's been extracted in a way that makes them bioavailable. Those compounds like triterpenes are not bioavailable if we just grind up chaga powder, or even if we make just chaga like chunks into tea. We're not going to get those terpene profiles. It really needs to be extracted in a solvent that pulls out terpenes, and then either made that into a tincture, which is like our chaga tincture. That's an extraction with alcohol and water to do a dual extraction that pulls out those active compounds, or dehydrate it back into a powder, which is what's in our capsules as well. So yeah, we've kind of done that homework for you and made it really bioavailable. Lion's mane. Yeah, again, #1 mushroom of our time right now. We've seen it in our sales, but I've talked to many people in the industry, and it is by far, lion's mane is the #1 most popular mushroom right now. I would think it should be reishi personally, and chaga was for a while. Chaga, like I said, 10 years ago when it really started to take off, lion's mane wasn't as well known back then. And nowadays, in the last 5 years, lion's mane is definitely the most popular mushroom of our time. And I think part of this is because we're all a little bit overwhelmed. We have a lot of distraction. I like to say that we worship a new god, and this new god is called our pocket god. It is our phones, right? We worship this because we spend a lot of our time on these devices, more time than we do to our spiritual faith or whatever that might be for anyone. The pocket god has become our, and so why I'm saying that is because this is an altered state. When we go onto our phone, we're having an altered state, whether we think we're taking a psychedelic or not, we're having an altered state here. And the reality of that is that it's really jarring to our nervous system to be always going back and forth and looking at screens, looking at roadways, looking at, doing all these different things. A lot of people are looking for that edge. They want better cognitive function, better memory. A lot of us do kind of that kind of mental work. We spend a lot of time on our emails. We spend a lot of time in our our media platforms. There's a lot less of that kind of physical work that would have been back in the day when we were all farmers and we were all hunter gatherers and we were all that wouldn't have been such a big deal. But nowadays, that's what people are looking for, is this cognitive edge. And so Lion's Mane offers that. And that's something that it makes it really special in the, I guess, the nutraceutical superfood herbal tonic world, is that it's got nerve growth factors in it, and it really stimulates growth in the nervous system and regeneration. This was first studied with Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis, and really is bridged into a lot more studies now being done on things like Alzheimer's and dementia, which a lot of us are, well, as we get older, we're seeing larger amounts of people that suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia. And that's partly due to the foodscape and the aluminum and the heavy metals and the things in our system that is causing some of our kind of dementia and our degeneration of the nervous system, the lack of good essential fatty acids. So definitely take your fish oils or krill oil, or those kind of supplements are really important for those of us that don't eat a lot of those kind of foods. And then what we're finding is that because this was studied for this, now a lot of people are really on it, and the anecdotal evidence coming back from Lion's Mane is profound. I mean, I do a lot of talks on mushrooms, and often, there's somebody in the crowd that has like a really cool story around Lion's Mane. Like I was in Edmonton a little while ago, and one woman told me that she got an X-ray done. Well, no, she went to the dentist, and they'd killed the nerve in her tooth, and it was a real like kind of, the dentist was super sorry. He's like, oh, this rarely happens. Like, this is not a common thing. Somehow the nerve, it's dead. I'm sorry. Like, whoops, kind of thing. Taking some kind of accountability, but really like telling her it was a rare and like freak kind of thing. And showed her the X-rays of it. Well, she started taking massive amounts of Lion's Mane, and after a good month or so of taking Lion's Mane, she started to get pain in that tooth again. And she went back to the dentist, like, are you sure the nerve's dead? And they took another X-ray, and like, sure enough, the X-rays, when they compared them, like, they saw regeneration, nerve growth building back into the tooth. And this was something that the dentist was like, now this is crazy. Like we don't see this. This doesn't happen. Well, I just thought that was really cool, because it was a great example of actually seeing like two side-by-side X-rays and seeing this nerve growth repair happening. Now, I'm not going to say that Lion's Mane is going to support you in your dental and nerve pain, because it caused her more pain, because all of a sudden the nerve was growing back and regenerating. But it all got fixed, and she was just telling us as a story. And I had a number of other stories from customers who've had car accidents or had like mental like inability to remember things, or deep like kind of degenerative nerve damage that have seen huge results. But I will say the ones that were really successful, and this really stood out to me, is the people who were taking 2 to 3 to 4 times the recommended dose. And that's something I just want to invite. There is a recommended dose for this product, but that's more for like supporting mood and depression and anxiety, right? Which is, again, Happy Belly mushroom, really great for supporting those things when it comes to the benefits of, well, for winter blues. I think Lion's Mane is a great one. A lot of people talk about St. John's wort. It's awesome. Some of the seaweeds have thyroid metabolism boosting compounds that give us a bit more energy when we're feeling lethargic and depressed and slow and sluggish. But Lion's Mane does a good job of just kind of increasing our mental brightness when we're feeling sluggish. And so I think it's a great one that way. But that's the benefit I would mostly be looking for, maybe a little bit of memory and cognitive function from a regular daily dose of a couple of capsules or a quarter teaspoon of our powder or 2 shots of our tincture. The people who are really successful at regenerating major nerve damage or dealing with Alzheimer's and supporting more of the memory and cognition side, we're taking like a tablespoon. So I just want to let you know, which means you really want to go with the powder, because that's the best bang for your buck when it comes to high dosage. Capsules are way easier, and we'll get into that. But I recognize that I could just talk about these things, so I got to keep myself going here. Turkey tail is the hard-working mushroom. I love this one because you see it in the forests all over the place. It grows on so many different types of trees. And this also speaks a little bit of the wisdom to how turkey tail works in the body. It is the great regenerator. It is the great kind of digester. It has a really awesome job at supporting the gut as a prebiotic, of really focusing on helping with gut health, but also digester of cancer cells, and helping the body recognize, or the immune system work with cancer cells and work with tumor systems and things like that. It's been really heavily studied for this. And it's something that is now used in Japan, this PSK and PSP, which is polysaccharide crestine and polysaccharide peptine. These are two polysaccharides in turkey tail that have been identified as being the most bioactive. They now are used as a pharmaceutical in chemotherapy, in conjunction with chemotherapy in Asian cultures. In Japan, they're covered by their government, but they're a massive, and they're like standard protocol now, because it helps with better chemo recovery rate. So up to 400% better recovery rate from cancer using the turkey tail extracts in along with the traditional, and I hate to say that chemotherapy is traditional because it's not, but the sort of Western, I guess, allopathic approach to dealing with cancer. So that's huge. This is huge. And there's a number of people who, again, the anecdotal evidence, the clinical trials, the practitioner-based stories around turkey tail are there's quite a few of them now, and that's really great to see. The biggest thing I think of it, and I like to just sort of leave you with this, is it is that immunomodulator, but really it's that digester and detoxifier and anti-inflammatory. So it works with the liver, it works with the gut, it works with the cell function at that level, and really to break down what doesn't serve us and get us back into coherence in a way. And reishi does this as well, and chaga does this as well, but turkey tail is really the one that I like to think of as that one. And it's something it's part of the reason we put turkey tail into our golden milk, because it has that quality of like really helping anti-inflammatory work along with the turmeric, and to just calm down and the digestion and just support the liver in that process as well. So cordyceps. Here is a mushroom that is really weird. This one grows on insects, and I think there's a show or a movie, people have told me I need to watch it. I forget the name of it, but it's really popular. You probably know it, based on cordyceps zombies, and it's like The Last of Us or something, I think it's called. I'm not sure. I need to watch it because everyone tells me it's like this crazy mushroom zombie thing. But the reality is I just don't watch a lot of those kind of shows, or I don't watch, but no, the reality is the cordyceps actually is really all about supporting the energy systems of the body. And it does feed on an insect, but all the cordyceps, like I mentioned, is vegetarian, that you're going to buy, no matter what company you buy it from, you're going to buy vegetarian cordyceps. And it's stamina, and it's recovery, and it's endurance. This first became really popular by, I think it was the 1984 Chinese Olympic team, when they, like, these little women, they weren't like very, like, they broke all these world records, and everyone was just like, what are you doing? You must be on steroids. There's no way, like, physiologically you're smaller than the people you're competing against, and yet you just dominated. And they were like, well, yeah, it's because we've been using this special mushroom to enhance endurance, energy, stamina, open the is a bronchial dilator, uptake better oxygen cell to that, all that, and just increase energy in general. And it was cordyceps. So now we see cordyceps is really taken on by a certain group of super physical people. I will say one of the things that I think is missing that people don't really think of cordyceps for is adrenal burnout. I think of this as a mushroom to help rebalance and restore adrenal burnout. And that's a real thing, especially in the modern world, especially as we kind of play with some of the like differences in our old, we break down the stereotypes of our gender roles. a lot of really powerful, excuse my French, but like badass women are like doing awesome work in the world, in a world that like it was historically dominated by men, and they are power players doing awesome stuff in the world, and yet they don't have the same level of testosterone, which is kind of like this inherent drive that was designed to really keep men in the hunt, to go on the hunt for 6 days without food and bring back the meal, in a sense. And so adrenal burnout happens far more readily in some of these women after 10, 15 years of kind of just rocking it out, and or just really managing multiple hats. So I'm seeing that much more, and I've seen that a lot more with this mushroom can be really supportive for people going through that, both men and women, but particularly I see more adrenal burnout in women these days. And that's just because of our cultural or our sociological change that we've been kind of working through and really reconciling with, like these gender stereotypes a little bit. Anyway, beyond that, we see that this also increases libido and drive, and that's something that increases fertility, both higher sperm count and better ovulation, and I guess fallopian tube kind of movement of the eggs, better tone in the uterus. So for both men and women, more increase in fertility and supporting more, I guess, better sexual function. So yeah, I think that's cool. I'll tell a quick story, and that's where cordyceps first got kind of uncovered was when in the high Himalayas, and it was a bunch of yak herders who, you know, herded their yaks in the high Himalayas, and they noticed that the yaks would go around and sniff the grass and like go in and they'd find this one specific thing, and then they keep going and they find another one of those specific things. And it was like this in the spring when this mushroom kind of came up, it was this, or maybe it was the fall, I don't know, but it was this this fruiting body of cordyceps that was growing in the grass, and they were hunting it down before mating season. And so they'd hunt down this cordyceps and then get all yucky and you know, just sort of start to create libido literally. So how cordyceps got on kind of under or found was really the yak herders observing their yaks and going and finding this weird little mushroom that the yaks were hunting out in the grass before they got frisky. And that's sort of the original the origin story of cordyceps mushrooms for human consumption thousands of years ago at some point in the high Himalayas. Now, but nowadays, yeah, a very different story. Okay, so those are the 5 mushrooms that I wanted to share with you. Now, again, it's Q&A time, so please ask your Q&As, put them in the chat. But I'm going to just, I'll have 2 more things to say, and then we'll jump onto that. Really, what's the best way to take mushrooms? And I will say compliance is more important than format. So if you're a capsule person, if you're somebody who has a drawer full of capsules and you take them daily, then totally take the capsules. That is the way to go. If you're somebody who makes smoothies and herbal lattes and you like to put mushrooms in your coffee, or maybe hide them in your husband's coffee, because that's a great way. Tim Hortons, don't tell Tim Hortons this, but their coffee tastes really good with mushrooms, or it tastes at least almost mediocre decent. It's not, I'm just kidding. But the reality is people who maybe don't take natural supplements, but go to Tim Hortons could probably use some of these benefits of mushrooms, and it masks really well in there. Tinctures are my personal favorite because I like the kind of intimate relationship with drinking it and taking smaller doses and really titrating and doing it a little more intuitive. Almost I use reishi like a Bach flower remedy at times, where I'm just like, I need a bit of grounding, take some reishi. And so I find that's really nice. But powder, best bang for your buck, and capsules, most easy to use. I think that's it. I'm going to say thanks for joining me in my webinar, and just really want to invite that our mushrooms are on sale right now at Choices. And so take advantage of this while you can. You will see that there's a lot of mushrooms on the market, and I think some of them are really good too. I'm not trying to say any of them aren't. There's a lot of great products out there. I just know that we've really gone the extra leg to make sure that we're giving you the best quality mushrooms in the best formats to make them really therapeutically active. And so that's kind of our thing. And yeah, and you can learn a lot more from our website at harmonicarts.ca. We've got lots of webinars, other trainings, education, recipes, and videos, as well as our Instagram channel. Both Harmonic Arts and the Herbal Jedi have all kinds of stuff like that. So thanks for joining me. And I see you're back and we're ready for some Q&A.
Thanks, Yero. And I put the link for the Herbal Jedi YouTube channel is in the chat, and the Harmonic Arts channel too. So those are great places on YouTube for everyone to get some information. And I will say that Yero mentioned that Harmonic Arts products are on sale right now. And tomorrow at Choices store-wide, we're having a sale where everything is an additional 15% off. It's just a one-day sale, so you have to come in store. So you will get a sale on top of a sale if you come into the store tomorrow. But we did have some questions. We had some comments too. So for mushrooms in the crowd, we have reishi, turkey tail, someone's lion's mane and reishi, and chaga were kind of our comments of what mushroom everybody was.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
So we didn't have any cordyceps.
No, zombie apocalypse people out there. Or maybe you don't want to tell us. Maybe you're secretly cordyceps people.
That might be it. Yeah, it might be a secret. We had a comment. Someone shared that they like to use mushrooms to support for their PSD and generalized anxiety disorder, and substance abuse. So that was a great share there. Someone asked, oh, sorry, don't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say, that's a really great way. I've seen, especially with like reishi, calming down it's like meditation in a bottle. So I've definitely seen people with addictive personalities start to take reishi and get some great benefits from it that way. But yeah, anyway.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Someone asked if we sell the Harmonic Arts at Choices. So I say, yes, we do. And we told you about the sale. This question came in. Is there an optimal dosage, and can you take too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's often, that is really what it is like, what is the optimal dosage? There's a point where it's not that you take too much, is that you're taking more than you really need to in order to have a therapeutic benefit. Because most of these have, like, there's something called the LDL, which is like the lethal dose, and are in 50% of people kind of thing. And it's so high on mushrooms, you literally, most of these ones, you got to eat your own body weight in them kind of thing. So there isn't a problem at that level, but anything over over 2-3 grams of the powder is really, you're not going to get any more benefit out of taking 6 grams, 10 grams of the powder, right? So we suggest literally a half a gram is all you need of our mushroom powders, or 2 capsules. But there's no problem with taking 6 capsules. There's no problem with taking 10 capsules. It's just, or a full gram or 3 grams. I once, just as an example, a friend of mine, we do the Canadian Herb Conference, and a friend of mine, we did the Vancouver Island Herb Conference. He bought a bottle of lion's mane, and he made me and him and another person eat that whole bottle that night. And so it was like, we ate 15 grams each of lion's mane. And because he was, he had done some research too. And he's like, okay, so I've heard about this like macro dosing lion's mane phenomenon where your brain lights up. And I was like, let's do it. He's like, I bought a whole bottle. You got to eat it with me, Yero. And totally, it wasn't a high. It was more of a fun, giddy, laughing, kind of good mood energy. But it was unnecessary to eat 15 grams. And yet, that isn't a problem, right? There's no safety issue there. It was just kind of fun instead of whatever other people do for parties. I'm not sure. I've never been to a party in my life. I'm totally a saint. No, I'm just kidding. But the reality is that maybe instead of a glass of wine, you could eat a bottle of lion's mane. No. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about with dosage is that there's lots of different ways to take dosage. And one of the things I like with tinctures is you can titrate the dose. You can take what are called ethereal doses, which is just a few drops, and tune into the mushroom frequency and the mushroom energy, and then take macro doses, if you want to. Also with dosage, I'd love to mention that dose by body weight. So when it says like 2 capsules, that's perfect for most people. If you're a very, very large person, you may want a little more. If you're giving it to kids, you may want a little less. So the 0.5 gram is good for an adult. Think of a 1/4 gram is good for a kid. And so, yeah, just dose by body weight. They're very safe for young children. I don't give anybody under 2 anything like this, but the reality is a lot of mamas and papas have been given reishi to their ADHD kids for a long time now. And it has great benefits. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you for sharing. A couple more follow-ups on dosage. Would taking these mushrooms regularly, daily, eventually lose their effects? And do you need to up the dosage over time? You kind of touched on that, but I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, like so again, when it comes to dosage, and I will say this is something to look at with other supplements as well. It's not just mushrooms, but I'm a big believer of the wax on, wax off phenomenon, which is like not taking something all the time. Typically, if you buy a bottle, I really believe you should take it to the end of the bottle and then take a little break and then get a new bottle, or like, so 3 weeks on, most products, it's like 3 weeks. You'll get, at least with our mushroom powders, you've got a dosage of 3 weeks every day, and then take a week off. You could totally take it all the time. But the way I dose is I dose about 3-4 times therapeutically a year. And then I just sort of haphazardly take mushrooms in my coffee or in my tea or in my soup, like I did tonight. So I will do like a regular dosage for a few times a year. And that's usually I usually do my first one I already did in September until I get bored with it. And that was like about 4 or 5 weeks of taking mushrooms every day because everybody's dropping around me like flies. I was doing a bit of traveling. I'm on an airplane around people coughing. And I'm just like, take your mushroom supplements, and just do it now. And so think of it as like, you're pre-paving success in a cold season, right? You're not taking them as soon as you're getting sick, you're taking them ahead of time. And then I also do that just before the Christmas season, because that's when all the parties are happening and all the people are getting together. And then there's always that one cold that kicks everybody's butt at the end of the year. And so I, again, will pre-pave that one with a mushroom thing. So that's usually the 3 main times I like to kind of set my body up for success with mushrooms. But yeah, those are some thoughts I have around dosing. There's no problem with taking them every day. My father, Dr. Terry Willard, who designed the Wild Rose Detox, he's taken reishi for, I think, like 30 years straight. So he's a bit weird, but he's great. No, just kidding. But the reality is that like it isn't a problem to take them all the time, and you're not going to lose potency. I just think it's better bang for your buck to take a week off every 3 weeks or take a couple of days off every week.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Your dad, did he write a book on reishi? Is that the mushroom?
Yeah. And here's another like sort of pass it down the line. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and I bet you can't guess what her name is.
Oh,
it's reishi.
That's amazing. Wow.
The reality is yeah, it's been a big part of our family connection to mushrooms is reishi.
Absolutely. So another question here, what are the differences between the powders, capsules, and tinctures?
It's mostly a format thing. They all have the same therapeutic benefits. They're all really done with the same kind of mushrooms. It's like, what format works best for you? And so we really we get this question a lot because it's like, wow, it can be confusing. Which one should I take? I want to take the best one. Why would I do one or the other? My bias is to the tinctures for ease of use for myself. But my other bias is to the powders for your pocketbook. You're getting more actual product in the powder for the money you're spending. And then my third bias to the capsules is that if you're a person who is a lazy supplement taker and you don't actually you don't always commit to the smoothie or the elixir you think you're going to make, then get the capsules. That way you're taking them every day and you're not missing them. You're not. So if it's so it really is a compliance thing. At our house, we go through more of the powder than anything. But whenever I'm on the road, I always just down a whole bottle of reishi on a trip. over a period of time, because I'm in a new environment and I just feel like it's like my little maybe it's my pacifier almost is a reishi tincture. So yeah.
I love that. So one question, someone just wanted you, the question says, I think Euro mentioned there is one product which has a powdered blend of all 5 mushrooms. They just wanted you to mention it again.
Yeah, so we do two products. There's a 5 mushroom drinking chocolate, and that is definitely our #1 selling product. And it's yummy and it's like hot chocolate. But what I did mention about that is it has a full therapeutic dosage of the mushrooms. And that to me is really important, that you just because you're having a hot chocolate doesn't mean you're not getting enough. So that is the one. But then also we do a 5 mushroom powder. And I guess we do a 5 mushroom tincture. So really there's a 5 mushroom capsule. So yeah, the 5 mushroom is in capsule, tincture, and powder, but also in a hot chocolate format. Yeah.
Thank you. So there's a lot of chat or just kind of comments going on, how people use mushrooms. So I'm just going to kind of skip to the next question, just because I know might be getting short on time. Does Yarrow do consultations as an herbalist?
I was trained in that. That's what I was doing. I've found after doing all my clinical hours and running a clinic with another practitioner for a bit, it wasn't for me as much at that point in my life. I really wanted to create more of this educational platform and work with that area. And so that's what I've been doing for the last number of years. Currently, I'm not taking on clients. I have a couple of clients, but that's I'm not taking on new clients at this point. So yeah, unfortunately, no. But I will say, look at the BCHA website, and that's our Herbalists of BC Association, basically BC Herbal Association, and they have a lot of great practitioners listed there, clinical practitioners, as well as at Wild Rose College, we are graduating all kinds of people these days, and we see a lot more clinical herbalists starting to come out, a lot more master herbalists. So there's more and more of those people. If you want to tune in with like maybe finding another practitioner, I'm gonna put on, I think I have one slide here, this last slide I wanted to put on. I'd love to invite you to tune in to the Canadian Herb Conference this November. This is an online platform. We have 38 speakers, and a lot of them are clinical herbalists from across Canada. And there's also some from all over the world. But this community at the herbconference.com is pretty awesome, with some really great clinicians. Even if you just jumped into the chat there and asked who's in Abbotsford, you might find that you got a good practitioner there. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. So I don't do clinic right now. I only have a few clients, and I'm just really busy with a bunch of business and teaching and all that other stuff.
Thank you for that. And I did drop the link for the herb conference. I mean, that's a pretty easy website to remember, but I did put it in the chat here for everyone. Some more comments. And here's a question. Any ideas on mushroom combinations for a non-recreational state in North America to ease 5 years of psych medicines? That might be more of a consultation thing, but do you have any thoughts on that, Yarrow?
Yeah, wait, can you read that last bit again? For a
I can. Any ideas on mushroom combinations for a non-rec state in North America to ease 5 years of psych medicines?
Yeah, obviously. So I will preamble that with, yeah, there's a whole evaluation there you'd want to do. You want to look at like both nutrition and your physical activity that you're doing. How are you building neural pathways with addiction and with that type of thing? What are you on from other medications or psych medications? So just really from a macro level, that's not something in a webinar that I could give you like qualified advice on based on the whole story of your picture of that person. But I would say that like, if you're just looking for like that, like top things to start to like look at, I've mentioned reishi a number of times around all kinds of things around grounding, around connection, around this. That's the mushroom that I'm most drawn to for people that are trying to look through, I guess, mental health imbalances that way, or support their mental health. But also you could pair that with lion's mane, right? So if you're looking at that neurological regeneration and new neural brain pathways, obviously when you talk to people in the wider industry of mushrooms, you're starting to see this big psychedelic boom around microdosing. And so I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying that there's some avenues you could look at there that people have been exploring deeper along that line. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And with that, I think I'm going to close it up. Everything else is just comments. Someone really likes the 5 mushroom chocolate. Everyone's saying thank you. So it's always a pleasure to have you, Yarrow. You're such a wealth of information and such a good energy. So we're all we're all grateful to have you. And we are from Choices are also grateful to have all of you out there. Is there anything you want to say, Yarrow, before I close it up?
Yeah, I guess I would say that, we are born of this earth. We belong to this earth. Mushrooms are a medicine that supports us in finding that coherence again, that connection, that real medicine of modulating our immune system, but also supporting us to show up in our best selves. And I think that's the message that I've been shared from the mushrooms, and it's the message I want to pass forward, that these are here to support us in our health. And the invitation is yours if you are on that health journey, that there might be a bit of wisdom that the mushrooms have to share with you as well.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for being here tonight with us. Please look for the email. If you signed up to attend, you will receive one shortly, and that will be information on how you can get your nutrition buck. So the way that we do that is differently now. It is set up for you to come pick them up in store. So that's a coupon that's going to give you $10 off if you spend $50 or more. Harmonic Arts mushrooms are on sale right now. And tomorrow we're having a huge store-wide sale at all Choices locations, 15% off. So that's an in-store only sale on anything, and that'll be on top of sales. So if you're feeling up to it, that's a great day to come on down to see us. For future events, you can find those online at our website, choicesmarkets.com. We also have posters up in store, and we hope to all see you soon in store. Thank you all for being here. Good night.
Awesome.